Like, once people hear that you're a sexologist, like at a nightclub, and I've heard someone's come up to me, like especially in Australia, if they recognize me, they'll be like, Chantelle, I have a million questions to ask you. And I'm like, it's 3 a.m. in the morning.
I'm on Molly. Can you leave me alone?
I'm like, can you book a session?
But first, a word from our sponsors.
Think back to the sex education you had in school. If it was anything like mine, it was stigmatizing, judgmental, and totally unhelpful. But not to worry. The experts are here to offer the sex ed we wish we had. Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. We're a feminist podcast and multimedia platform bringing you all the sex ed you never got through unique and entertaining storytelling, centering LGBTQ and BIPOC experts. Follow along with us as we revolutionize the way we talk about sex, and tune into Sex Ed with DB wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Welcome to the Man-Whore-Podcast.
Shout out to the fan whores, to the whoreheads, to the pod sluts. This is Billy Presida, and you are listening to the Man-Whore-Podcast. Sex-positive conversations. This week's guest is sexologist Chantelle Otten, and I will be explaining and then sharing our conversation in just a little bit. Real quick, just some points of business. The Naked Comedy Show. Have you not heard? It's the only comedy show in town where you too can take your pants off if you'd like. Yes, the Naked Comedy Show is back at the Hacienda in Bushwick next Thursday, August 22nd. Tickets are still on sale. We've sold about a third of the tickets already, so get yours now. Ticket link at the top of the schnotes, or you can always find my upcoming stand-up dates at manwhorepod.com. Another thing, I just got this email from Patreon, so I'm passing this along. Moving forward for all new potential members, which is most of you. Most of you are still potential members. Apparently, Apple is getting all dominant on us. It's just taking its big tech hand and wrapping it around my wallet throat. Daddy Cook is spanking us with his fees. It's going to be an extra 30% to join any Patreon if you're using the Patreon mobile app from the Apple Store. If you have an Android, you're chill, carry on, join how you like. If you have an iPhone, join the Patreon on desktop to avoid the fees. Then you can use the mobile app to experience your membership. The recipients of this week's Fan Whore Appreciation Moment, they are fee-free. The theme of this week's Fan Whore Appreciation Moment, I think, is broken keyboards. This first guy is Strabry XY. It's STRBRIXY. I think he just accidentally laid on his keyboard while signing up for his Patreon on desktop. I think that's what happened here. But out of all the keys you pressed, hey man, you pressed the most important key, which was to become a member. Thank you for your support on Patreon. And I want to say thank you to one Brad Fish, who I think wrote his password instead of his username. I'm not sure if you put the right thing in the right box there, but what's important is that you click the right button, which was the give Billy money for amazing bonus content option. Good job, Brad Fish. And you too can become a member, enjoy a slew of great rewards, and support this indie podcaster right here. Become a member today. Support the pod you love at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast on desktop. Or you can download the Patreon app from whatever the Android people download apps from, and you can find me on there. Quick intro this week, everybody. Quick intro. Chantelle Otten is my guest this week. She is a sexologist out in Australia. Now, her people reached out to me, and I know that most of the time when a manager or a publicist reaches out to me on behalf of the client, I a lot of times they have not heard the show. They may not realize exactly what it is I do. Longtime listeners know I'm not really a Q&A kind of guy. I'm a follow my curiosity kind of guy. I like to make a connection with the guest and see where it takes us. I want to get to know each other and have ideally an open and honest conversation. I don't really do I prepare 11 questions for you kind of interview. That's not really my style. So her people reach out to me, pitch her as a guest. She's in town. Great. Let's connect. I do clarify, particularly when it's, like sex experts or authors, anyone who would consider themselves an expert in a field, I say, hey, do they know that I'm going to want to talk about them more than their expertise? Her people are all like, yeah, no, that's fine. She just doesn't want to talk about the current relationship, which is a very common boundary I will receive from a guest. So I arrive at the place we're recording, and someone didn't tell somebody something because, Chantelle was very nice and lovely and complimented me on my glitter. But then when we got to what are we doing? I asked did your people, tell you anything? She said, no. Oops. Because it turned out, Chantelle doesn't really talk about her personal life. And all I do is talk to people about their personal life. So we had to kind of quickly renegotiate boundaries and expectations and have kind of a mutual agreement that we'll feel it out. And, again, she can use her words when she doesn't want to answer a certain question or talk about something. I think we figured it out. And so what you're hearing is me very quickly trying to reconfigure the conversational pathways I'm envisioning, as well as having just very much renegotiated what sort of boundaries we were playing with. And again, Chantelle, lovely. When you hear later just even hints of a couple of the stories that she has dealt with by being a public person, you understand why someone would say, you know what, hard yank back, tightening up. I'm here to do the work. I'm not here to be a personality. I get it. Totally understand. I just think it was malpractice by the man. I mean, I spoke to 3 managers. I think it was malpractice on the management side to pitch her to me at all. So what you hear in the beginning are, 2 people who are thrown into a situation that they were not quite expecting, and we figure it out. And then I think we had a good conversation about family of origin and about where to draw the line on privacy in this public social media game where even your plumber feels forced to make content. And content not just about the plumbing, but sometimes even content about the personal life. And now I bring you that conversation with Chantelle Otten. Enjoy ad-free episodes at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast.
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. Technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Your reps were asking hey, so what are the pre-prepared questions? I said, there are no pre-prepared questions. She's like, how do you get into it then? And I was like, I don't know. I just would chat and we'll see where we connect on something.
So is that why are we starting here now?
Yeah, I'm finding it. Finding it. When I run into, when I get nervous about overstepping your boundaries, especially when it's a new revelation, like in the last 10 minutes, I sometimes don't exactly know where to go or start. But it's a fun little journey to go on.
Well, maybe we just say how do we get to know each other first? Let's get to know each other.
Hi. I'm Billy Procida.
Okay,
I'm a mid-level comedian with a sex podcast who once a month runs a naked comedy show, and his dad is a little too proud about it.
Okay. Where do you do the comedy show?
At an orgy basement in Bushwick.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was in Bushwick the other day, actually. And one of my friends, my good friends, he runs the comedy clubs in New York as well.
Oh, what's
Emilio?
his name? Oh, you know Emilio?
Emilio is one of my closest friends.
Really?
Yeah.
Now you do your hi, my name is.
Hi, my name is Chantelle Otten. So I'm from Australia. I've got an Aussie accent. I am a sexologist in Australia, which is like a fancy word for a sex therapist. And my background's in psychology. I studied science and medicine, specialized in sexual medicine. I studied sexology in Amsterdam because I've got a Dutch background. And then I started my clinic in 2017 in Australia, and now I have a team of 20 there. I want to move to the US, so it's really nice to be sitting with you here and getting to know you and a little bit more about the landscape. I work with some really big corporations and talk about how to include sexual wellness into their companies and being more open and inclusive. And then I'm the author of The Sex Ed You Never Had, which you actually can't get in the US. You can only get it in Australia. But it's sex ed for adults.
In the world of the internet, why can we not access it?
Well, I'll think about that.
Is it not on the Audible or?
It's on Audible. I mean, do you know what you can access here, which I think people would really love, is I have a podcast on Audible where you can listen to patient sessions that I hold with people. So people volunteer to talk about their questions, their concerns, their challenges in the bedroom. And we sit in a room together. It looks like a therapy room, so 2 couches. And we have some drop-down mics, some lapel mics, and we do 3 hours of recording and cut it down into like a 45-minute episode. And people are really open and vulnerable. So you'll hear stuff about like erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation.
Do they get like a discount on the session, or is this just out
These
of the
are free
goodness of
sessions, and then I see them continuously after for a discounted rate as well. But I'm pretty good at getting them on the right track. I would say I'm good at my job. So yeah. And
they I assume all want to be anonymous, I would imagine.
It's all anonymous, so no one knows who they are. Yeah.
Do you run into any like weird, like, hey, can you take out? Can you beep? Do you run into any? Has anyone ever been like, can you take my thing down?
No, it's not take it down. Our job, like I am here to protect people. It's not within my interest to make people ever feel nervous or uncomfortable about their episode coming out. So of course things come out during those therapy sessions that you just go, yeah, we're not going to include that. We're going to shift the storyline. The storyline is one thing for the podcast. Their continuous therapy and healing journey post-podcast is my responsibility. And then we can go into those things that might be a little bit more challenging that are not, that wouldn't be good for air, I would say.
And what made you interested in relationships as a job in the first place?
Okay, so I mean, my family is Dutch. We have a very open, sex has always been like a really open topic for us. Like my parents have always spoken about the importance of sex, how it is so important for relationships, for bonding. I have 2 younger brothers and an older sister who's intellectually disabled. So talking about sex was really important also to make sure that there's safety involved, especially for her as well, as she's in a vulnerable minority group. But, you know, she's married to a disabled man, and then she's living her best life. And then my younger brother is married with kids, and then my youngest brother has a partner. But my parents were always like, sex is important. They still talk about sex. They still have sex. And for me, you know, I went to Catholic schools my whole life, and I realized my friends were having their first sexual experiences in really I would say like risky scenarios, like at house parties around the side of the house and using Glad wrap instead of a condom. Glad wrap's like...
Wait, you actually know someone who used Glad wrap? I feel like that was just like
people.
I thought that was a myth.
No, of course. Like that happened. Like it was not like safety was not a thing. Of course, like I don't know how old you are. I'm 33.
I'm 35.
Yeah.
My hair is 42, but I'm 35.
You look great. The glitter's perfect as well. For listeners, there's glitter all over his face.
I'm working on finding a pattern that works, but yeah, well, thank you.
You're sliving. So no, I mean, we went to a Catholic school and like, we once had a priest who was like, we need to talk about sex. Like we need to put this topic on the table here because we're at risk of people.
The priest brought this up.
Yeah. And we never saw him again after that conversation. Like
he
was like cut off from the school. Yeah. He was not allowed back.
Yeah. If only he had touched little kids, they'd be like, hey, you can stick around.
He was like, yeah, he was gone. I went to, it's common to go to all boys.
That's just entirely crazy to me.
Yeah.
They were like, you talked about sex responsibly? You're out.
You're out.
Do what the rest of us do. Do it privately, very illegally.
They don't even talk about it at all. And, you know, I just thought, like, for me, we were allowed, like in our family, to have a safe space at home to explore. Like my parents did not want us going and having risky scenarios, like, you know, like playing around in a park or like in a car or something like that. They were like, you're safe here, you know, enjoy yourself here, like learn in a safe environment. We don't want you to be in harm's way.
Yeah.
But for a lot of my friends, that wasn't a possibility. And I think that really affected them. I'll be honest, like some of those friends I see around, and I think it affected them for the rest of their life because their value in themselves was challenged from the get-go. And I think that's an extremely sad thing for me to hear. But anyway, that's not really what started it. I mean, I finished school. I have ADHD. I was undiagnosed during school, but yeah, my school thought I was really dumb. They told me that I probably wouldn't finish school, and that I should drop out and like do it we call it a TAFE course here. I don't know if it's like a
is that like a community college?
Kind of?
Oh, trade.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, trade school. We're trying to make those a thing here now, but nah.
Yeah, they were like, they said to my dad, like, let's be honest, Chantelle's not smart enough to finish school. And then my dad's like, no, fuck you. Like, she's so smart. She's fine.
See,
and look at me now. I'm doing great.
You got multiple degrees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were like, oh yeah, he's going to do fine in school, but on the playground, that's where I struggled. They were just like, he's really annoying.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was, all the claims of me being annoying now make far more sense with the brain diagnoses and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first conversation your parents came to you, whether it was about relationships or dating or sex?
I don't remember the first one because it was just like ongoing stuff. Like we would have family dinner every night, and yeah, they'd be like, I don't know, we were able to ask questions about sex. We were also like, we had a very open household, so we would have like my parents' friends coming over. You would hear them talking about their sex life or divorce or like infidelity, that kind of thing. So
they didn't like hush you out of the room.
Absolutely not. No,
Okay.
no. They were like, this is what's happening. This is how that person feels at the moment. This is why it could have happened. This is the crazy stuff they're doing because they're really upset right now. And my parents really raised us to be very welcoming and always very caring. We did a lot of they did a lot of volunteer work at like women's shelters. We built women's shelters in Papua New Guinea and hospitals and stuff. So they were really about protecting the community. And I think because of my sister having an intellectual disability, we had to have awareness around, like it was just ingrained, like half my family has a disability. So we were talking about really taboo topics because there's no filter a lot of the time for those who are disabled. And, you know, they wanted to talk about sex and they wanted to talk about like kissing and like touching and like lubricant and all of that. So it was just an open one.
Where are you in the hierarchy of the children? I'm oldest.
So Steph, my sister, is 34. I'm 33.
Okay.
My brother's 31, and then the youngest is 29.
Oh, y'all were like effectively like about the same age.
Bang.
Yeah.
We were out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're 11 months apart, my sister and I. We're both in December.
So you didn't have like a dad who, you know, when you bring a guy home and he's like, watch out, and then he shows him the gun or something like that. Well, I know your country rightfully got rid of him at some point.
Yeah, we didn't have guns. We didn't have guns.
I forgot that reference not going to hit with that island. But yeah, like you didn't have that overprotective, like no one touches my daughter type of thing. It's more like you only touch my daughter with respect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about it.
My dad brought out a samurai sword at my sister's 8th grade graduation party for comparison.
Okay, no, we didn't have that. I think it was like, you behave yourself, like, you know, but they raised us to be cheeky kids. Like they raised us to be naughty kids and to push the limits. That brought them pleasure. Like we didn't watch TV when we were younger. We were out riding motorbikes and like playing with other kids in the street and exploring. You know, it was a bit more of an unconventional lifestyle, I would say. They're not, and they're very traditional. Like they're not, maybe sometimes people think, oh, they talked about sex. They're quite like open. They're not like in a hippie kind of dynamic. Like they work really hard. They own multiple businesses. But they were just kind of like, okay, have fun. Every Friday night, we would have all my friends over for dinner. So we'd have 20 of my friends over for dinner every Friday night.
You had 20 friends? I'm jealous. Okay,
like everyone who had their partners. We'd have, my mum would cook for everyone. We would have pizza night, and then we were allowed to like play in the pool or go out. And my parents just loved having the space that was safe for us. Yeah.
Okay. So when you declare like, I want to become a sexologist, that wasn't an obstacle for you.
My mum told me to become a sexologist.
She told you to?
Yeah, she said, I think you'd be really great at this. So I finished my psychology degree, and then I was doing organizational psychology, which is such a joke because I have ADHD and I'm so unorganized. But it was just there. It was,
What's organizational psychology?
You go into businesses, you help them organize their teams, etc. Like business development in a way. I'm very like, I have like a business mindset as well, I think, because my parents own businesses. But she said, I think you should read Esther Perel's book, Mating in Captivity. And I read it and I thought, wow, like who is talking about that here? It has such a beautiful, she is so articulate. She speaks in such a beautiful, open way about relationships. It's not black and white. And from what I knew at that stage at home, everything was black and white. Like if one of my friend's parents cheated on the other, it was like, kick him to the curb, they're done, like da, 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 da. And that's not the reality. Like people have affairs for multiple reasons. Right. And like.
Your mom told you to read that, and you're how old? Like early 20s?
Early 20s.
Why did she pick that out for you to randomly?
Because my brain was already in a place that I understood people very deeply. Like it's something that's inherent in me. I have an energy. People open up to me. Sure. I love helping people. And I loved the topic of sex. I love sex. I think it's so fascinating. You're always going to have a job if you work in sex as well, because we're not there yet in terms of like robots taking over therapy. I'm sure AI will progress in the future, but for now, like sex will be a universal question and a universal concern for a lot of people. And we were only talking about the good side of sex back then, like movies, pornography, like not saying porn's good, but I'm not anti-porn. I think like we were only talking about the media representation of sex.
Okay.
Yeah. And I wanted to know the deeper stuff behind it.
And with sexology, before your mom brings it up, even a thing you had kind of thought about, like maybe I want to get into that, or is like your mom bring it up and a light bulb goes off of like, what a great idea.
The second option. Yeah. And I went around Melbourne where I live, and I met with some amazing sex therapists. And then I realized there is a gap in the market here in terms of age demographic as well. I always wanted to work in a hospital, and I thought, there's room here to bring it into the healthcare system a little bit better, because it was there, but it was separate as well. Like, I don't think that it was quite integrated as much as I would have liked it to be in terms of referral systems. Like, everyone will have a sexual problem at some point. There's so many conditions, medications, like SSRIs, they cause difficulties with sex, cancer, grief, depression, anxiety. All of these things can cause sexual problems. But because of the time barriers in terms of consults, in Australia, you get a 15-minute consult if you go see the doctor. I don't know what it's like here. It's like opening a can of worms. Also, there's a 1-hour lecture on sexual medicine in the medical degrees in Australia. So a lot of healthcare professionals didn't have the tools to be able to necessarily discuss sex as well. And I thought, cool, well, now I have a mission, I have a purpose to work towards. I am goal-oriented as well. And so I started my journey, and I started my master's degree in science med, specializing in sexual medicine. I moved to Amsterdam. There's a lot of incredible sexologists there. I found my mentor, Dr. Ingrid Pinner. She kicked my ass for like 2 years. And like she's a gynecologist, sexologist, and she was like, we need to do research together. And I had no idea how to do research. So we'd start, and every day we'd be looking through data. She wouldn't let me leave until the last train was going, because it was an hour outside of Amsterdam. And so I just would, go there, work all day, work on this stuff, learn as much as possible, come back into the city. My friend Mella, he would take me out on his boat around the canals, drop me off at my place. And then the next morning I'd get up at 6 and do it all again. And I did that for such a long time. That is the reason that I'm a good sexologist, because I had my ass kicked so much during that time.
When you're dating during that time period, was that ever a thing where people felt intimidated or would have any sort of interesting reactions when they would say, what do you do? What are you studying?
I didn't really date during that time. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I wasn't interested. I had so much other stuff to do rather than kind of, I had company, but it's not like I was kind of looking for anyone. When I moved back to Australia, I did get married. I was married for 2 years. So I got married when I was 25 and then divorced when I was 27. And I married a friend of mine, and yeah, he was amazing. We had a great time, but it wasn't a long-term thing. But I haven't really dated a huge amount. So I think when I don't tend to talk about what I do when I'm out and about, because I am more of an introverted person, even though I seem quite extroverted. I really like my privacy. And I think once people hear that you're a sexologist, especially at a party or, I've been at a nightclub and I've heard someone's come up to me, like, especially in Australia, if they recognize me, they'll be like, Chantelle, I have a million questions to ask you. And I'm like, it's 3 a.m. in the morning.
I'm on Molly. Can you leave me alone?
I'm like, can you book a session? Like, yeah. I think that it's like asking a hairdresser at a party, what hairstyle should I get and what color and how are you going to trim it? It's like, there is a barrier between personal and professional. And so I'm very clear with my boundaries. And I know sometimes that has turn people off because they're like, you're very, I've had you seem quite like standoffish, or you're like cold, or you're icy. And I'm like, no, I'm actually just protected.
Yeah.
I'm just protecting myself, because in my job, I work to help people heal. And a lot of my work in my clinic is pro bono, because my staff are amazing and they work in a paid capacity. I work with people who cannot afford therapy and they really need it. They've been through complex trauma, in and out of government care, psychiatry issues, very complex like medical conditions that are hard to find someone who has the skills to be able to treat those things. And I love a challenge. So I'm really lucky that I can do that. And my mentors are people that help me along the way to try and find solutions for those difficult patients.
And when you work in sex, I feel like, I won't pretend like it's the only subject matter where people want to demand your work for free outside of it. You work in the entertainment industry, people will have a ton of questions that you don't want to answer at 3 a.m. at a nightclub. You work in finance, someone's going to try to see what free help they can get while you're out, at a bar. But with sex and relationships, I feel like there's an excitement to finding someone who does that for work out in the wild. and then they treat you like you're a friend who they could now just talk to about anything. And you're like, yo, this is my job. Like, I already talk about that and answer that so many times. But I think it goes to show how few folks have in their lives to talk to about stuff. I got like a Discord server full of people who a lot of them are in the server just because they're like, I got no one else I can talk to about non-monogamy or about kink or about whatever. So they like are just there. I think there's just so many people desperate to find someone willing to even say the word sex in public.
Absolutely. They just want a place to download. Yeah. And there's no problem with that. Like, I get it. People are going through tough times, but I'm not the person for them.
Or not all the time you're not the person for them. Like, there are designated times for that. Oftentimes they're going to be compensated. You know?
Yeah. Well, also, like, how am I meant to give advice to someone if I don't know what they're like? I need to really understand their background. What meds are they on? What's their background culturally? What's their interpersonal relationships like? What's happening in their body? What's happening in their mind? You know, how did they learn about sex? That stuff takes time to figure out. So actually, it's unethical for me to give advice when I don't know someone that well. Yeah.
And then in terms of kind of like, you know, privacy and what to share and not share, you know, you've taken the sexology, and I don't know, maybe you can comment if this is the whole industry or just, you know, some people like you, where I think content has become a part of it now. Mm-hmm. And so people see your face forward a lot. It's not just memes.
Yeah.
But I think there's something about like social media, whatever your job is, if you're in front of them enough, they want more. They want more of you, you know, when the camera's off. Like, what's that person like?
They want to know what's behind the scenes? I mean,
I'm not necessarily asking anything specific. I think I noticed that people feel entitled in this age of social media to have all of a person if they are willing to give any of it.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. I think that it's evolved for me over the years because when I first started my socials, I did not have one photo of me on there. Mm-hmm. I just had like, you know, a beautiful image, like hands holding or like bodies or something. And then I would put, you know, sex facts underneath it. So I was starting to provide like sex ed for the masses, for all the people who couldn't access me.
Memes and graphics.
Yeah, not even memes. Just like, it was like, it would be like a photo that would grab attention or an image. So maybe like more of an erotic one or a hot one, a body, etc. And then I'd put like, have you ever experienced sexual pain underneath? It could be vaginismus, or it could be, you know, endometriosis, etc. And then my social started growing because I was at that lucky stage where Instagram was the app of the time, and it was easier to grow on the app. Now, obviously, that's changed a lot. It's very difficult. But then it came to a point where, you know, people started saying to me, people want to know what is like, who is behind the content. Yeah. And so I had to be a bit brave and put my face in front of it and, you know, show off like, here's me talking to a breast cancer group, or like, come book at my clinic, or da-da-da-da-da. And then it started evolving more, I guess, as more like sexologists kind of got into the industry and started on socials. I started seeing a lot of like Instagrams popping up that looked quite similar to mine. So then you have to evolve again to differentiate, because it became, you know, more of a trendy, I guess, job to have. And yeah, so now
what was it like that first time you put the face out there?
I'm trying to remember. It was fine. It was fine. It just took a little bit of time to become more comfortable with being right in front of the camera. But putting my face out there started to allow sponsorships to come through from companies, because they were like, okay, like we have an expert here who's able to talk about these topics.
She's a real person. She's not an account handle.
Absolutely. She speaks well, you know, she's appropriate. And I wasn't like, it wasn't about my sex life. It was about my job. And so sponsorships started coming through, and then that changed everything, because I always thought I'd be a therapist for the rest of my life, but my goal really is to spread education to the masses, and to educate on a national, if not international, kind of platform as well, because there's so many people. For the one question someone has me, thousands of people have the same question.
When we're like, okay, we've got to evolve again, and people want more. How did you start to figure out like what you were going to put there and what was going to be just for you?
That was hard. Yeah. So I would say like there's been times where, especially during COVID, I think things changed a lot during COVID because we all kind of lost our minds a little bit.
Yeah.
In Melbourne, we had a very strict lockdown. So we were allowed to leave the house for 1 hour of the day for a walk, and we weren't allowed to leave 5 kilometers from our house. So like my family lives 45 minutes away. I didn't see my family for like a year. I didn't meet my niece for about 6 months or so. And during that time, for me, it was challenging because people were looking towards social media for engagement, for connection with others. So I was sharing more and more of my personal life, and what I was up to and what I was doing. And
here's my salad.
Here's my fucking house. Like, here's my dog. Here's my partner. But it kind of got a little bit too much. And then I think when I would be walking around the streets, like, it was never my goal to be famous in a way. It was never that was never my goal. But I started to go, okay, like, people know who I am now. Like, I'd get people and say hi, and I love that. I love when people come and say hi to me and say thank you for you've helped me with A, B, and C. It's such a rewarding thing because you never know who you're helping when you're doing this work. It's quite an isolating profession. Mm-hmm. But I think I just also like I was getting kind of approached by, lingerie brands and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, here's here's a great brand. I love that stuff. I feel comfortable in my body. I'll wear that lingerie. I'll get a paycheck. And then I was like, no. Actually, this isn't appropriate. Like, I'm a therapist. I sit with patients. I don't want them to be able to see my body. So I really reined it in. And I think, as we were talking about.
Did you end up doing a few of those things and then had to rein it in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tight window of time. Mm-hmm. You're like, ooh, that felt a little too much.
Yeah. I just thought, you know what? I don't think this aligns with what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, as we spoke about, like, I've had, like, since then, like, some security issues in terms of people now can find out where I live because it's online. People know where my office is. They've come there. I've gotten like letters in the mail, and it started becoming a little bit more scary for me. And I started to freak out a little bit more about my safety. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did that overline with starting to share some certain type of content?
No, it didn't. I think,
was it maybe the size got bigger?
It's just the following got bigger. Yeah. And because I talk about sex in such a normalizing, safe way where people feel like they're not being judged, and they feel safe to be able to express themselves. Like, I've got a huge amount of DMs, and people are so generous with me about what they share. Mm-hmm. I can't help them via DMs, but, they feel comfortable and they feel seen. I think that then it kind of just maybe with some people translated into a bit more of an obsession.
If I show up, she'll help me. If I show up,
I'll
just go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not realizing how incredibly crazy that is.
Yeah.
What was the first incident that went, holy fuck, what's happening?
I can't remember the first one. I think, there was like one guy who would message me every day, like about like wanting to be with me, da-da-da-da-da. And then, I've had a few of them over the years. You just don't respond. Like, they're filtered, and you don't want to aggravate anyone. So
sure.
You don't like block them or anything, because then they start escalating. But I think one of the major ones that was scary was someone did come to my office because they wanted to have sex with me. And then, they like smashed all the windows at my office. They went around and they ended up, causing a lot of harm around the city that day, and now that person's in jail.
Wait, they did more?
Yeah, I was like the first stop, I would say. Like,
Wait,
yeah.
What else did they do?
I don't want to talk about it
That's
too
okay.
much,
That's
like
okay.
because I think that could be. It's not a pleasant thing to talk about.
Sure.
It's a triggering thing. So for
Okay.
any like listeners, I don't want to go into it. But you know, I think having a risk for your life and also my staff who are working at the office, a risk for them and their safety. That is not my fault. Like people behaving in that way is absolutely not my fault. But being more in the public eye, you run the risk of that stuff happening. Yeah.
And because of incidents like that, what did you then change? What did you have to start pulling back on?
I stopped sharing more of my personal life. I stopped sharing where I was, like even, you know, like the areas I would hang out with, or like the in or like the coffee place I would go, or my friends, you know, like a lot of that changed for me. And I just started focusing back on the content and the mission that I had. Yeah.
And this is a short question to possibly ask something else, but like, were you with your current, did you have a partner in your life while that was going on?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
I would imagine that person had to be like a real strong support, system.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like I could see something like that putting like a strain on things.
Yeah, I mean, he was very supportive. We've got a full security system at our house. I've got panic buttons now. Like everything is like locked down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's also got to be difficult in the present. And so this is where we may dance around. That's okay. I'll try to follow your lead. I've never taken dance lessons. I heard somebody leads.
Okay.
I hope it's never me. I'm not that kind of man, but you know, you have a boyfriend who is also in the public eye. And so it can be extra difficult when both people are public to maintain that privacy, you know, and especially when you're pulling it back. So, you know, what sort of challenges present themselves when you're both public figures?
I think we both just decided to focus on our work on social media instead of, you know,
our what?
Our work, like
Okay.
putting forward our work. Like we both have missions. He works with disability. He's an amazing advocate, an incredibly talented person. And then I focused on sexuality, and we've really just we don't get to see each other that often because we are very busy people. We travel a lot for our work. And we just were like, you know what, the time we spend together is our time. It's not for anyone else. We became a lot more introverted with what we were doing.
I'm currently in a long distance situation. What sort of tips do you have to like help maintain that beyond just, we text?
I think like you have to show each other a lot of appreciation and a lot of like affirmation for what you're both trying to achieve. I'm not going to say like long distance is difficult. You know what that's like. I think that just making sure that you're each other's cheerleaders is like the best thing possible. And like keeping it light, keeping it positive, you know. I think like making sure you're doing your own work as well so that you have a support network that's not going to I do therapy once to twice a week because it's important for me to have a support network that is not my friends, not my partner, not my family. Sure. Like I need to have a place to go where there's a non-biased opinion with someone who is also a professional who can give me better outlooks on life so I can be a better therapist and a better, person within my community as well.
Is there a moment you recall when he did a great job of being cheerleader?
He's always been a great cheerleader. Yeah, he's really supportive of my job. He's really proud of me, everything that I'm trying to achieve in life. And he's always been in the background, helping introduce me to the right people, helping elevate my career. He's an extremely successful person. And I think I feel so blessed that he's also included me along his journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like had some terrifying people not been so terrifying with boundaries and done things like show up at places, do you feel like you would be more open about your personal life had not been for that? It's
a really interesting question. I don't know the answer. I think our lives we've been together 5 years. We've become a lot busier in the past 5 years. So, being on social media, it was so much fun at the start of my career. Now it's just part of my job. It's not a fun part of my job. Socials have changed. Instagram has changed. There's a lot of challenges out there. And I think that it's not to do with my relationship. It's to do with me feeling good. And I feel good when I can put out content that can help people, and I see it getting shared, and I see people going, wow, I want to book in because I didn't realize that I had this problem, and this is the first time I've heard about it. And that's the reason why I've pulled back on personal stuff, because my personal stuff, who cares about it? No one actually cares.
But that's the thing in this modern day, depending on how you are and who you are, people go like, oh, I do care. I do want to know. Something that stood out to me where you were like, you want to make content that spreads education around the world for those who need it. And that made me think, knowing all that you know now, is there something in the realm of sex or interpersonal relationships you wish you had been taught back then?
Like everything.
As open as your parents were, not all of them were fully equipped, we'll say.
I think I think it's important to know everything. I mean, my parents taught me to be open-minded. I think in terms of sex education as a whole, focusing on pleasure rather than an outcome of like reaching orgasm or, reaching a certain goal is really, really important. I think consent education is something that we have lacked. It's becoming very big in Australia now. But there's been a lot of damage done because people didn't know about sex education and consent education. I think remaining curious is a really important thing, because so many people have kinks and have like things that they like to explore in the bedroom that we just have no idea about. And people are scared, they taboo, like sex is a taboo topic. So when something that's like a little bit outside of the norm comes up, people go, oh my gosh, oh, they're into that. And I think people spread other people's secrets way too easily. I don't think that that's appropriate. I think we need to learn to protect our groups, protect our friendships, and, welcome each other in a non-judgmental manner when it comes to sexuality, because it is such a fundamental part of quality of life. And I think that, it's only, I hope that it gets more open and people become less ashamed of sex as we continue to have conversations like this.
Yeah. Before we go, I've got a patron-only channel in my Discord server called Ask the Guests, where they can propose any question if they're a Patreon member, and I will ask it. If it's a great question, I wish it was my idea. If it's a bad question, look, it wasn't mine. So this first one comes from Tulip Noir. She asks, okay, but for real, I do need to know what WTF she thinks of the recent bubble campaign and billboards and the response to them. And then something that says an extension of that is, what does she think about the 4B movement? I literally don't know anything about that. I don't know about the 4B movement either. I think I had to Google that. But the Bumble, you can't talk about that? Okay, she can't talk about that. Okay, that is fine. Tracy wants to know, have you ever had to help people with pain from endometriosis, and what did you suggest?
Yes, so I work with people who have endometriosis.
So I was like, that one was like, that's a Chantelle's, that's a question she's ready for.
Yeah. Like, this is a question. I mean, I think that with endo, it's very sad because a lot of people don't get diagnosed until later in life. I think that the pain of endo is confused for a lot of people. And I think that, people who menstruate, their pain is, discarded a lot. So it's just like, you'll be fine, like have a Panadol. It's not normal to have such an intense pain that you could end up in hospital. And endometriosis can lead on to other sexual concerns such as vaginismus, which sounds like Christmas of the vagina, but it's not. It's like the opposite. It's like Halloween. It means like, it's like, it's painful sex. It's when it's difficult to have penetration. It's like a finger or a tampon or a penis, very difficult to penetrate, like stinging razor blade like sensations, or like hitting a brick wall. Like it's not able to go in at all. with endo patients, it is a combined approach. You have to work with a team. So I work with that patient's gynecologist. I work with the pain management specialist, their pelvic floor physio. I work on their sex life so that we can find, positions that are comfortable. If they have painful sex, we work on trying to reduce that or, take that out of the equation as well. A lot of education with that person and their partner or partners as well about what they can do. And then also like tracking the menstrual cycle too.
Yeah. So like you got specialists who help with like kind of the physical elements of that. And then you're like, I'm going to help you out with strategy and like what you're going to go off and do, with after the results of those specialists in a way.
Well, in a way, I'm managing their case. So I'm providing them with the
You're kind of like an in-between specialists and patient for that.
Yeah. And alongside giving them help from a sex therapy point of view.
Mm-hmm. Tracy also wanted to know, what is your number one go-to, because this one has 1,000 answers, but what's one of your number one go-to answers when people ask you how to have more sexual self-esteem?
Do my sexual self-esteem course. You can find it on my website, www.chantelleotten.com. Sexual self-esteem is a huge topic, and it is something that requires work and time and attention. I don't have like a quick fix answer for you because, you know yourself well. And I think that for most people who struggle with sexual self-esteem, it is around their body. It's around communicating about sex. It's about being naked. It's about feeling confident in their abilities. So the course that I made, you sign up for it. You have, I think, like 12 modules and then a 30-day challenge to help increase your sexual self-esteem. I've heard it's quite hard. I really didn't realize I was kicking people's asses with this course, but it's a lifelong one. You have access forever, and it has helped so many people. This
is actually a funny final question, considering you plugged the course in the answer to that one. But the last one I have here is Mr. Nathan JW wants to ask, how do you feel about the ecosystem of online courses by people in your field? Everyone seems to have them. How does a prospective buyer evaluate them? Yeah, I think you have to go and research who you are purchasing these courses from. You want to make sure you're purchasing from someone who is actually qualified as a sex expert, because there are a lot of people out there that are not qualified, but that have courses online. You don't know where they've got their information from. And I think wherever you are buying a course from, you want to make sure that it's updated, it's accurate, there's scientific research behind it. And that person has years of experience treating that concern as well. So there is a lot of available courses out there. I think you need to find the sex expert that you relate with the most, maybe their social media profile, etc., and that you feel safe in terms of how they communicate around sexuality with you, and then try their course. Yeah, don't just go online and kind of Google, help me with erectile dysfunction and pick the first course that comes up. You need to please don't do that.
Yeah, you need to because
that's just going to be by whoever is the best at SEO.
Absolutely.
That's all it's going to be.
Absolutely. So find the sexpert that you relate to that is qualified, and then explore their course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how do you feel about the ecosystem at large? The idea that kind of everyone, not my mom. My mom probably do a good one, but like kind of everyone seems to have their course or courses that they provide in this field.
I mean, I don't mind it because it provides, I guess, security for people who don't feel confident in doing therapy and sitting face to face with a therapist. I think that it is providing education to the masses, whereas, for me, to do a course, to write a course, to film it, to, make homework for it, that can take months, because I also see patients and I have other jobs that are helping people. If someone's doing full-time courses, and providing great ones, and you like them, I mean, there's not a problem with that. The ecosystem of online courses is not something that I would say I'm an expert in at all, because I really just stay in my lane.
Okay. Well, speaking of a lot of different jobs, also I'll say I think belated congrats on you walked a runway for the first time. Did I see that was like a dream of yours to one day do?
Yeah. I mean, I walked in a runway at Australian Fashion Week, and it was really fun. We incorporated like vibrators into the look, and that was for into the look. So if you actually look at the photos on my Instagram, I'm holding a vibrator at the same time. So it was adding like a little bit of like eroticism to the I guess to the collection that my friend Carla brought out. So I really loved it. It was a wild experience. It's ticked it off my bucket list, and now I can think of other things I want to do. No, I didn't think I would ever be a model. Like that's not what I was born to be doing.
But when you were up there, were you like, I'm glad I'm doing this, but never again? Like I might treat skydiving or?
No, I mean I would do it again, but I'm also 33, and like the model in front of me was 16, so I was like kind of a geriatric model.
Well, you look very far from geriatric, of course.
You.
Chantelle, thank you for chatting with us. Where can people go to find you, follow you? You mentioned the website. We may want to give them a nice little Aussie spelling.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Chantelle, CHANTELLE _Otten, OTTEN _sexologist. And then my website is www.chantelleotten.com.
We're not on the talk tick? You threw a sleigh at me. You threw me a sleigh in the text, and I was like, "Oh, she's in on the Gen Z speak. She's clearly on TikTok."
I'm on TikTok. I think it's just Chantelle _Otten. Yeah, I'm not as like savvy with the TikTok, but I'll get there.
No, well, well, thanks again. Why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Thank you so much for listening, and thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. I think we figured it out, don't you? Let me know what you thought about this week's show in the episode discussion channel in the Champagne Room, our super free, super fun, super sex positive Discord server. And if you are a Patreon member, you can join us in that server for hot. What was that one? That Lance, I don't know if that's worth keeping in. That one was weird. Hot Movie Night, unofficially brought to us by hotmovies.com. Use promo code manwhore for some free minutes. We'll be watching a retro era porno next week, August 20th at 9:15 Eastern Time PM. You can always send me your comments, your questions, your titty pictures, your complaints to manwhorepod@gmail.com. That's also how you can reach me to inquire about coaching around sex, around dating, around love, to take advantage of 10 years of interviewing all the top sex experts, as well as a couple decades of dating and flirting and fails. Next week, I'll have a slightly less awkward, less complicated podcast recording for you. I think with the rabbi. I think we're going to do it with the rabbi one. Oh, yeah, no. I recorded with a whole ass rabbi. And you're going to hear it soon. But until then, stay slutty.